Okay, so in this example, we're solving by elimination, and what's already done for you is the x terms are lined up vertically, so are the y terms, so is the equal sign, and so are the constant terms. That's already done for you, so that's good, because that's what you need to do in this in solving these problems by elimination. What you have to look at next is trying to eliminate one of the variables, and you have to examine the coefficients. Let's pick x. There's 3 and there's 5. Are those numbers opposite numbers? No. No. If this was 3 and this was -3, then we'd be good to go. But it's not. Okay? So let's go back and let's say, what about the coefficients on the y term? Are these opposite numbers? Nope. They're the same sign and they're different actual values. So we have a bit of a problem. The problem is small, but what we need to do is we need to figure out how we can manipulate, or remember I mentioned earlier, how we can multiply one or both equations to get an opposite coefficient for one of the variables involved. So I'll say that again. We might need to multiply one or both equations to get an opposite coefficient on one of the variables involved. And right now there's no easy way to do this, okay? Because 3 and 5 would have a common multiple, but I'm going to have to multiply, I would have to multiply both numbers, right? To get, what, 15. 4 and 6, they would have a common multiple. I would have to multiply both these numbers to get the lowest common multiple of 12. So, let me just pick one. Let's pick the x term. We're going to eliminate the x term, okay? Now the common multiple between 3 and 5, as I mentioned, is 15. That's the lowest common multiple between the two. So what I want is on this top equation, let's say I want a negative 15x, and I want this to be, on the second equation, a positive 15x. That's what I want. Okay? So what do I have to multiply the first equation by in order to get a negative 15 here? What do I have to multiply this term by to get negative 15? Thank you, negative 5. Okay, there it is, negative 5. So what we do to, of course, one term in an equation, you have to do to all of them. So let's rewrite this equation right now. What's it going to be? It's going to be negative 15x, and then it's going to be negative 5 times negative 4y. What does that give us? Positive. Negative times negative is positive. What's 5 times 4? 20y. What's negative 5 times 7? Because remember, you have to multiply it to every single term because it's an equation. It has to stay the same. What's negative 5 times 7? Close. 35. Negative 35. All right. So now let's focus on the second equation here. What number should I multiply this second equation by to get this positive 15? 3. See that? So I get positive 15x when I multiply these two. I get negative what? 18y. This is why your multiplication needs to be pretty quick, because you can take a long time if you're punching all this in your calculator. So this is where your times table is really important. Okay? You don't want this to take an hour. I'm already going slow enough, right, trying to teach it. So you can imagine you going even slower using your calculator. 3 times 8 is what? 24. Thank you. 24. So now this is a huge important step, and that's what's the big deal with this problem here, is you have to multiply, in this case, both equations to get one of the terms that have an opposite coefficient. So are there any questions about how or why I did this? Because this is huge. Yeah?
So to find the numbers multiplied, you just find like the least common multiple?
Yes. To find the numbers to multiply these equations by, you pick one term and you look at the coefficients and you say, what is my lowest common multiple between those two? If all else fails, you multiply this term by this coefficient and the second term by this coefficient. Now that's it. If you don't know, like you could I could have multiplied this by, 6 to focus on the y term, and this by negative 4 to focus on the. We could have done that. We didn't have to go to 12. But anyways, yes, so that's, did I answer that question? Answer that? Okay, so now it's easy. Now we just go ahead and we add up these equations. I'm going to go a little bit quicker in this stage now. So negative 15x plus 15x is 0x. I wouldn't even have to write that down, but I want to show you that it adds up to a 0x. That x term is basically gone. The next one's 20 plus negative 18, right, is how many y's we have left. So 20y minus 18y is plus 2y. And negative 35 plus 24 is going to be negative 11. Is that right? So look at what we have here now. We end up with, you don't have to write that. It's a positive, you don't have to write that. We end up with 2y equals negative 11. You see how I've got one equation now with one variable. That's the whole point. One equation, one variable at the end. Or at this stage anyways. So now I divide by 2. This is going to be a fraction, no big deal. Fractions are just regular numbers 2. They hate being discriminated against. So it's negative 11 over 2. That looks like it's going to be our value here. Okay, we okay with that? As a decimal, it's negative 5.5. Okay. So now I substitute this value into one of the two original equations to find out what my x value is. So let's take the first equation, and we'll go 3x, I don't know x, but I do know what y is. So there you go, I'm going to plug it in. And now I'm going to focus on solving for this x value right there. Okay, so this is 3x. Now what's negative 4 times negative 11 over 2? Well, two things you can say. A negative times a negative is going to be a positive. The 4 and the 2 can simplify. That's 2 over 1. So what's 2 times 11? 22 equals 7. Did everyone follow that? 4 times 11 over 2. You could just go 4 times 11 is 44, divided by 2 is 22. You can do that too. You don't have to simplify like I did first. But again, that's going to save you some time. All right, so 3x, what do we do? 7 minus 22 is going to be what? What's that? 15? And divide both sides by 3, and you get, wait, did I miss the negative sign here or something? Yes? Did I miss the negative sign here? Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. Negative. Thank you. Negative. Just something didn't look right. Okay, negative 5. Yeah. So 7 minus 22 is negative 15. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So here are two values. Of course, we should check those to make sure that they work, right? And you can just check those real quick. And those are your answers. Of course, x equals negative 5 and negative 11 over 2. Okay, you can check graphically, you can check algebraically by plugging both those values into both equations, should make them true.